Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rocks Roost. Good to have you here. Today, we're going to look over the notes that I made while I was playing the Final Fantasy One Pixel Remaster and kind of do a recap. I hesitate to call it a review because, what am I going to say that anybody else hasn't already said? But other than my own opinions, of course. And I'm not really going to be scoring the game because I'm not sure. I thought about it. And I'm just not sure what meaning a score would have. So I've decided to just jot down a few things under each of these headings that I have here, and you know, hopefully this will make sense to you. Yeah, this is the first time I'm doing this, so you'll have to, please excuse the weird nature of it. But as we go along, this will probably get smoother. So I put this together for today. Let's start with just thinking about the graphics of the game. Obviously, this is one of the big selling points of the Pixel Remaster. The graphics overall are good. The sprites are good. I know there's a lot of hate for the sprites that has floated around, especially since the games first came out, the Pixel Remasters, that is, and that has sort of died down some. And I think the sprites overall are pretty good. For this game, anyway, as we go forward, I may change my mind about that, but this is only about the first game. They are, however, sort of missing that, that sort of, je ne sais quoi, of the original sprites. In fact, none of the many remasters or remakes of this game have captured that essence that the original sprites had. And there's other things that this remake or remaster, whatever you want to call it, and other remakes, remasters of this game have also been missing, and it has to do with atmosphere. Okay, the first game, and I don't know if it was due to the limitations. It might very well have been. There were a lot of limitations, of course, with the NES. It was not the world's most powerful system. And developers had to work within those limitations. So in the first game, there's a lot of mystery. There's also a lot of blackness. The color black is easily the most present graphical element, if you want to call it that. It's the most present hue or color or whatever you want to refer to it as. It is the most present character in many ways is blackness. The box, even in IRL, the box that the game came in was black. And that blackness, although for the most part, I do think that the blackness, like what you see in the battle screens and what you see inside many of the interiors, that blackness was it gave a mysterious feeling. It gave a somewhat oppressive. It wasn't always oppressive. I don't know if that's really the word I'm looking for. It wasn't the kind of blackness that sort of presses down on your soul or anything like that. But I think more in the fog of war sense. Okay, the blackness is just sort of an unknown, and I think that gave the original game something special that the Pixel Remaster definitely does not have. The Pixel Remaster is very colorful, and at times it is too bright. The battle backgrounds in particular seem almost too bright in a few places, and the game in general is very colorful. Now, again, I'm fully aware that this is, my opinion, and you may feel very differently. You may like the colorful nature of the game. And I'm not saying it looks bad. It doesn't. It doesn't have the same feel as the original game. And you know what? That's okay, because if you want the original feel, guess what you can do? you can play the original game. But while I'm not necessarily comparing Final Fantasy 1 to the other Final Fantasies, because I don't think that is fair. I do think it might be fair as we go along to later games to look back and see where they have come from. But we're starting at the very beginning here. So comparing this to later games, I don't think makes sense. But comparing it with other versions of itself, I think does. So it's up to you. You know, do you like the brooding moodiness of the original game? Play the original game. I mean, there are ways to do that. It does have sort of the downside of the original games. It is loaded with bugs. None of them make the game unplayable, but they do take some of the fun out of it, like how the weapons, things like the ice brand and the flame sword, don't apply any ice or flame damage. That part of any kind of special weapon or armor is bugged in the original, and it works in the Pixel Remaster. So, you know, is this game as good as the old one? Yes, it is as good as the old game. It's just different, or the original game. Other things, I did really love the battle transition. You know, the breaking apart of the screen into squares that fall away. I thought that looked really good. It was smooth, at least on my PC. The water effects. Now, the water effects were really cool, and I think that goes to show you what you can do with pixels when you have talented folks making your pixel art and your pixel animations. They did a great job in general with the sprites and with the backgrounds. Water effects were sort of next level. I love the water effects in town, like when there'd be a little stream flowing by, you could see the current in the stream. I like the water effect on the ocean. Also like the lava effects. That was cool inside Mount Gulg. So yeah, the game graphically is fantastic. A+ on that. The sound. Okay, this is probably the second big thing that you buy the game for, and for me, this was probably bigger than even the graphical appearance. Because again, I have played all these games before, and I'm happy with the way they looked originally. I'm also happy with most of the remakes. So, you know, but what the remaster really has, in my opinion, over all the other versions, is the orchestrated score. And it sounds fantastic. The music player and the cute little animation that runs at the top, that's also very cool and a nice touch. Adds a lot to this game, makes it very much playable in modern times. It's also a nice nostalgia callback for those of us who played it back in the day. The unified sound effects. It's my understanding that sound effects like door openings and that sort of thing have been unified across all of the Pixel remasters. I think that's a neat idea. The sound effects did sound good in this game. The weapon hits, like I said, the doors, the noises that you hear when you, or I shouldn't call them noises, the sounds you hear when you go through the menus, everything sounded Final Fantasy and sounded good. I thought it was great. The battle system. Now, this is where I'm going to say that because classic RPGs are all about combat and exploration. This game has both of those down pat. Okay, so the exploration, you do have to kind of wander around. You are incentivized to explore, because if you don't wander around, talk to NPCs, and find quest items, then you can't progress. Okay, those are sequence triggers that are required to move forward. The game does a good job of that. The battle system, on the other hand, this is the part that might hold back some new players, particularly younger players who aren't used to playing old school RPGs, or at least on console or on computer. Because this is not only turn-based, but it's a no ATB turn-based. It's as old school as it gets. So your whole party picks what they want to do. and the enemies pick what they want to do, and then the turns just sort of happen based on agility, and and it plays out how it plays out. There's not a tremendous amount of strategy involved, but there can be as well. So there's something to be said for pure turn-based that works like this, like without an active time system. I find it fun and thought provoking. I also like the ATB system. Which one do I like better? I'm not sure actually. This game, it's hard to I'm trying to stay like within the confines of this game, but in talking about do I like ATB better, I don't think I like one better than the other. They both work well. If they're in a game that is designed well around the battle mechanic, then the game is going to play well. And this game plays extremely well. Even the original one with the bugs plays well. And obviously it's very memorable because it's sparked a franchise that now is in 16 main games plus a gazillion spin-offs. So that magic is here. Is this the game you want to jump into Final Fantasy on? Probably not. I would say either 6 or 7 would be the best place to jump in if you haven't played any Final Fantasy and you want to get sort of an idea of the roots, right? Without going back to the rootest of roots for all intents and purposes. If you just want to get into the zeitgeist, 16 is the current game is a very good jumping on place because a lot of people complain, well, that's not a Final Fantasy game, but I would argue it is. I mean, all the elements are there. You've got your thematic elements, you've got your character elements, you've got your sort of world building elements. They're all very Final Fantasy. Yeah, it's a very active, action-paced battle system, but 15 was action, 7 Remake was action, 13 was not really action, but action-ish, Yeah, so I think it's a perfect place to jump in. Plus, there's all kinds of callbacks to the older games, which seeing all those Easter eggs as I played through 16 is why I'm going through this big marathon right now. And that's why you're listening to me prattle on and on. I hope it's enjoyable, by the way. So anyway, that's without going any further and rambling on and on. I think 16 is a very good game. We'll get to it. Old school turn-based battle, also good. One thing I love about this game, and I'm glad they chose to use it for the Pixel Remaster, is the daily spell charges. Throughout the whole LP, we talked about at different times why I think that's good and how it works. And it leads to, I think, more tactically interesting choices than an MP pool generally does. Limited MP in an MP pool still gives you that tactical thought process for using spells, kind of a la Dragon Quest, particularly Dragon Quest 2, 3, and 4. But I would argue that it applies to every Dragon Quest up to 11, because you have very limited MP in those. But I do kind of like the old D&D version where you rest at an inn or a tent or what have you, and essentially a new day dawns, and you are psychologically prepared again to use your magical powers in a very limited way. Because remember, this is magic is a power of the will, and it requires tremendous psychological preparation to be able to use it, and tremendous mental discipline, and that's very taxing. So it makes sense that spell use is very limited and that it can only be sort of recharged by sleeping. I mean, that just, in my mind, that is just fantastic. I'll leave that up to you. but I like the spell charge system, and I know I'm in a minority there. Okay, let's talk about stats and leveling. The curve is definitely different from the original game. We finished this up at level 53, I think. Something like that. Normally, I would finish this game at about level 30, I guess, 35 at the max. So you level up quicker in this game. And you do, in fact, seem more powerful at the end than you did in the older versions, at least the first version. Was it game breaking? I don't know. The level curve on this, the power curve, has been smoothed out some, but it's still not quite perfect. I'm not sure exactly how I would change it, but here's the effect I'd like to see from a change, okay? To its credit, there was only there's only a couple of spots where I think grinding is necessary. At the very beginning, you want to grind up to about level 2 or 3 before you go see Garland. I think I went to level 4, and I realized that really was too strong. You could probably just shoot right up there at level 1 in this version of the game. But very minor grinding there at the beginning. Second time you need to grind is not too far along when you first go to Elfland, and the first sort of, or I guess the third set of gear and spells opens up for you, and the fourth set does for spells. You need a bunch of gold, so you need to grind there for the gold. Now, once you do that, that's going to set you ahead of the game level-wise, and it basically makes you overpowered for the entire rest of the game until you meet the war mech on the bridge in the floating castle or fortress, sky fortress. I can't remember. I keep calling it the floating castle. I can't remember what they called it in this remake. But so that's basically the whole game. You're just totally OP. The ice cavern can give you a little bit of trouble, but it's not really that the enemies are too powerful per se. It's that they have some rather unfair spells and abilities that can really hammer on you. But things like quick save in this version of the game help with that. Things like ethers, which this game has, the original did not. That really helps with that. That can give you a few more spell charges when you're in the depths of a dungeon. Yeah. So, and the ether, by the way, that works thematically with the whole mental power thing. You know, you drink something alcoholic and it will sort of loosen up your mind a little bit. And, you know, not that that's necessarily a good thing. I do like when they add ethers or similar items in games. I like for there to be a downside. This game doesn't really have a downside because not only does it not have a negative effect, but they're also cheap. I like for ethers to be very expensive or to have some debuff associated with them, but you rarely run into that. So that's really my only problem with the game as far as like leveling goes and the power curve. I think you get strong early to get that gold, and then you just stay strong basically to the end. We didn't really have any trouble. I think, you know, we lost the monk. He got knocked out fighting the Pisco demons first time we were in the marsh cave, and that was something I could easily have avoided, but you know, I just flubbed it up. But basically that was the only trouble we had, and that wasn't even that bad. So I do wish that later enemies were harder, like especially in the final dungeon. We meet up with the same enemies we've met before, and I understand that in the original game, there was a limitation to how many enemies you could have. So they were the same as they were when you met them earlier. Okay, it'd be nice if in the Pixel Remaster, where those limitations aren't really a thing, to have stronger versions of those vanilla type enemies in the various floors: earth, water, fire, air, you know, etc. Like the theme or the fiends themselves, they were stronger. So why not have the popcorn be stronger too? That, I think, would have been a little bit more fun. But generally, compared with all the versions of this game and other games of its contemporaneous. It's fine. It's fine. Characterization. This was excellent, actually. People say, well, there's no characterization in Final Fantasy 1. Not true. You are all 4 characters. It is you. Okay, you are the light warriors. All right. This is a, it's an early version of the silent protagonist. Instead of 1, there's 4 here. And they're all you. They can stand in for different aspects of your own character. Your character is in, your essence, your ethics, that sort of thing. What makes you you. I'll tell you an interesting story that, playing through this game, I told you I did not own this as a child, but did play it. Rented it, actually played it at a friend's house a few times. I had forgotten about that until I was playing through this time. And when we got to the end, it sort of dawned on me. There's the messages at the end that say, you're the one that, the hero and all that. And I got to thinking, I grew up in a very rural area, and not a lot of opportunities to do and be in that world. But I did go out in the woods a lot. I spent a lot of time in the woods exploring and just sort of hanging out there and seeing what I could find. And my imagination would run wild. And it was just a ripe field for this sort of thing. So once I played this game and also Dragon Warrior and The Legend of Zelda, that actually fueled my imagination outside as well. And so I would pretend that I was going off into things like the Marsh Cave or the Earth Cavern to hunt for the witch and that sort of thing. And that was fun. And I like to think that my experience with not just this game, but Final Fantasy in general, which later did things like teach me complex political concepts, SAT words, and all kinds of just really cool stuff that helped me develop as a person. I like to think that a lot of that actually came from gaming. And I was not one of these kids that just planted myself in front of the TV and never went outside again. That's, I'm sure that exists, but I'm not convinced that happens often enough. I think that's something that largely has been made up by people who don't like or don't understand video games, I don't know. That wasn't my life. And it never has been. It still isn't. I'm still as active as I can be. And I also play a lot of games. So anyway, I thought the characterization was actually pretty good because at the end of the day, it causes you to sort of look inward and think about yourself and what you would have done in these situations or similar ones. Which brings us to the story. The story, generally it's a basic RPG story with a sort of a heroic character arc, but of course the time loop subverts that somewhat, right? Because at the end of the day, the heroes go through all this trouble, but they break the time loop to save the world, and everybody forgets what's going on. And the question is, do the Light Warriors also forget? Not sure, but again, you don't forget. So you remember saving the world. All right. I remember it all these years later, 33 years later. I remember saving the world in Final Fantasy. And I remember saving it again just the other day for the billionth time. So, the story's basic. The time loop thing might be cliche now, but it wasn't then. Okay. So I think it's all very good. The story and atmosphere of the game, this version, Pixel Remaster, were also helped tremendously by the opening cinematic. I think that really set the mood quite well. There is a slight thematic disconnect with it and the rest of the game, though, because the opening thematic is actually quite dark. And after it plays, we're immediately thrown into the field in front of Cornelia with not only bright colors on the screen, but a very happy, jaunty overworld music. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there, but I mean, I'll give it a pass. It's fine. It's fine. It's the kind of thing you only really think about if you think about it too much. Couple technical things, though, I do want to speak about, especially since I'm talking about the opening cinematic. I think that should be skippable. I think the title screen should be skippable, and they are not, at least not in the PC version. The customization sliders that they have for gold, EXP, etc. on console desperately need to be ported over for the PC. The bestiary should be in the in-game menu on the PC like it is with console. Having to go all the way out to the main menu to title screen and is just clunky at best. All the extra stuff, the music player, which, that's another thing. On console, you can switch between the original soundtrack and the orchestrated. Love that for PC. That'd be good. I hope they're working on these things. And the artwork. All the extra stuff that you can get to from the title screen, you should be able to get to from the in-game main menu. The bestiary, by the way, is very good. Looks good. Functions well. Like that. This is probably the Pixel Remaster, probably the most accessible version of Final Fantasy 1. The PSP 20th Anniversary Edition might be the best in terms of like accessibility for new players and people who didn't grow up with these older games, because it has it's a little bit less clunky. But getting a PSP and getting a copy of this game legitimately is not exactly the easiest thing in the world. So the remaster, all 6 remasters, have a huge advantage. Not only are they awesome, but they're available on pretty much every platform. Okay. Pretty much every platform. So, if you're wanting to play Final Fantasy 1 through 6, you can do it. And you can play darn fine versions of them. The font is not great. The in-game font, you've heard that a million times. I do feel like the hate is probably somewhat overstated, but it is easily fixed. And you can look up on YouTube or Google the way you do that. You simply just change out a couple of files in the game files on your computer. Now, you can't do this on console, unfortunately. If you want to change the font to, other fonts, you have a choice of 2 fonts on console. I think both are pretty bad. But if you want to change to the font you saw on my screen, there's a way you can download that font, a couple of files, and just plop them in. So that's easy to do. And it works for all 6 remasters. All right, final thing, replayability on this game, fairly high. I mean, obviously, I've played it a whole bunch of times on a whole bunch of systems over the past 33 years, and it's got high replayability. One of the things that helps with that is the game is simple. It is short, okay? And so it's okay you can play through it as many times as you want to without getting bogged down. You also have the ability to pick a party of 4 from 6 different, thief, warrior, thief, black belt, and the 3 mages. So the 6 different types of character, you can pick 4, and you can duplicate them or not duplicate it, whatever. Okay, just pick out of 6 possible characters, make a group of 4. And that's fun. And talk about a game that's screaming for a new game plus. Okay, it's Final Fantasy 1, and I'm kind of surprised there's not one in the Pixel Remaster. I know they were trying to stick to the original and just sort of update the graphics and sound, but they also threw that stupid reference to Sid in, which that's not sticking with the original. Okay, they couldn't resist that. So I don't know why they couldn't do a new game plus. Final Fantasy 1 is screaming for a new game plus. Screaming for it. Make it happen. Square Enix, make it happen. The other thing there are a number of mods available for the Pixel Remaster. The original NES version has a vibrant hacking community, ROM hacking community, and you can actually make your own mods of the NES version yourself with FF Hackster. If you want to look up FF Hackster, that is a really cool tool for making your own NES versions of Final Fantasy. Okay. Overall, Final Fantasy 1 Pixel Remaster, love the game. If you like Final Fantasy, buy it. If you're new to Final Fantasy, buy Final Fantasy 6 first. Those are my recommendations for the Pixel Remaster series as of right now. So next we are moving on to Final Fantasy 2 Pixel Remaster. The way I'm going to approach that is I'm just going to play it. I'm not going to worry too much about min-maxing because that'll drive you crazy. I am going to use a little bit of knowledge I've picked up over the years to help with the way the game levels. Will help to have some levels that are more useful than others. But basically, and I think this is the way anybody should play Final Fantasy 2. Just play it. Don't worry about the fact that the levels are non-standard and that, you get stronger in things by using those things. If you're a fighter, if you have a character that you want it to be a fighter or a tank or whatever you want to call it, give him the heavy arms and armor and make him whack stuff upside the head. If you have a character you want to make a mage, give them light armor or no armor. Never give them anything but a knife or a staff, and give them lots of spells. Put them in the back row. Okay? Just, if you behave with the characters the way that you want them to be, they will excel at that. And that works even in the original version of the game. We're not going to do silly stuff like hitting ourselves and try to get HP ups and things like that. So we're just going to go through, we're going to relax, and we're just going to play it. And we're going to see if the system falls apart or not. I don't know. It may completely disintegrate, and I may have to revert to things like hitting myself in the face. I don't know. But I feel like there's a good chance that if we just sit back, relax, enjoy the game for what it is, I think we'll have a lot of fun. The game has a great story, has a great atmosphere, and I am a fan of the Saga games, so I kind of like the leveling system. And there I said it. I'm black sheep for life, I guess, but I like it. I hope you like my playthrough. We'll be getting to that very soon. For now, I want to thank you very much for listening. Really appreciate you watching all my videos and supporting the channel. Leave a like, drop a comment before you go, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I really appreciate that. I hope you have a great day, wherever you are, whenever you are, and whoever you are. And remember, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.